So this truck is a 2024 F-350. Today I'm gonna go over what I love and hate about towing and really using this F-350 Platinum. It's the beast, the biggest, the baddest, Platinum, high output power stroke diesel. Like that truck is an absolute monster, okay? I took it down to South Carolina last week to pick up a camper I just bought. And this camper was probably loaded up. It's probably 8,500 pounds. And I really wanted to drive a Ford. I usually drive the GM trucks like GMC, Denali Ultimates, AT4Xs. That's what I've towed with a lot in the past. And I'm like, you know what, this high output Ford, I want to drive it, see what it actually tows like, handles like on like this is like a 10-hour drive up, 10 hours down, 10 hours back, roughly. Guys, that was kind of, you know, again, what was it actually like using it, towing with it, going up and down mountains? I actually got into George Washington National Forest with the camper on the way home, was doing gravel roads, up and down mountains, some washouts. Actually freaking crossed over the Appalachian Trail at the top of the one mountain. So really got into it with the truck. So guys, first off, I'll go over this. So looking at the truck, and I bought this truck, and I knew when I bought it, I wanted to do a wheel and tire on it. I wanted to put an aftermarket wheel and tire on it, which is what I ended up doing. But this guy, guys, this front end is wrapped on the truck. So they actually took a Platinum, they wrapped it, they made this, this is all like this, the white, they whited out the Ford emblem. So definitely a sweet look to the truck. That's not a factory look. And then we put these fuel wheels on it here. I think this is actually a 22, yes. That is a 22-inch fuel wheel. It's their two-piece wheel, right? So the center part, you got the piece here, and then the rim is the second piece. And then you do have your 35-inch BFG K03s, right? So sweet-looking truck. Of course, you got your power running boards. You can see here, this actually is going to have to get cleaned up through detail, but this is just they painted the chrome on that truck, which is why it's chipping off, right? That's always going to happen if you paint that, right? So anyhow, guys, this is the 350 single rear wheel short bed, okay? Which basically all it's doing, the difference between this and a 250 would be a beefed up rear suspension, okay? And possibly, 350 typically is going to have a higher or a lower rear axle ratio, because it is a 350 and it's set up for towing, right? So most likely a 373 rear axle in this truck. I did not check that exact, but most likely what we're getting. So again, guys, this truck is the Platinum. So you got the sensors, the cameras, the blind spot alert. You got it all built into your tail lights and your headlights, right? So loaded up, we'll go here. You got your easy lower tailgate. You got, cameras in the tailgate. So when the tailgate is down, you can see backing up. I didn't use that at all because I had a camper hooked up to it. All your setup here, if you did have a fifth wheel or a gooseneck, you would have all that. However, it is a short bed, so you'd have to have, if you had a fifth wheel, you'd have to have a slider hitch on it, because you're not going to be able to get, a standard fifth wheel turning is not going to be possible without that slider hitch, right? You have the built-in generator. That's just a 2 kilowatt generator, so it's not the big boy, it's the smaller one, but you do have that option. Really, I had this sucker hooked up, had the wiring hooked up there, and like I said, the camper I was pulling was like 8,500 pounds loaded up. Actually, the impressive thing to me was when I had this thing hooked up, and you can see right now, you have a slight rake, back ends up a little bit, because this is all stock suspension on the truck. The only thing we did is a different wheel and tire. When my camper was hooked up, it was leveled out basically perfectly. This truck did not sag in the rear. It didn't squat with 8,500 pounds on the hitch, right? And really, let's go. Let me open this thing up. All right, so as you can see here, loaded up Platinum truck, super comfortable truck to be in, to drive in, to be sitting in for 10 plus hours. I mean, you have the full massaging seats. You got your two-tone leather, the brown and the black. Big cup holders here. Again, super nice. Phone holder here. You can bring your phone charger up through that when you have your phone sitting in there. Again, little amenities that are definitely nice, right? The other thing, it has the Bang & Olufsen sound, the better sound system. You got the full pano sunroof. This guy that had it before me tinted the sunroof, which is actually pretty nice on a long trip. You're not getting super hot. This is the high output, right? So you have that 500 horsepower 1,200 pound-foot of torque, an absolute beast in that regard, right? You know, heated cooled seats, heated steering wheel, dual zone climate control, you have all that good stuff. All right, guys, so the most impressive thing about this Ford truck, I will say, was the 500 horsepower, 1,200 pound-foot of torque, high output motor, okay? And paired with that was their diesel exhaust brake. This exhaust brake, you have a regular mode and you have an automatic mode. With the exhaust brake, you just tap that, right? Tap it once for regular, tap it a second time for the automatic. I had it in automatic the whole time. And their trailer mode, when you kick it in, you know, and you basically are just adjusting it right here, right? So you have your trailer mode, which I had it in that the whole time. Guys, the stopping power, you know, getting this thing with your trailer, and I have my trailer brake gain set at 3.5, so nothing crazy there. Just hitting the exhaust brake, going up and down mountains, and I was going up some pretty crazy stuff. Went up 81 and then hit some back roads, and we went over to camp the second night we were doing it. And this thing handled very impressively. The exhaust brake and the engine power combined, super impressive, okay? That part of it, those, like, honestly, a lot of positives about it. I would say the biggest thing, right? Now let's go out here, let's go out here and look at the outside of the truck. Probably the biggest detriment, okay, in this Ford truck, and this is because I'm used to driving, again, I drive a lot of the GM trucks, the GM 2500s, 3500s. The Fords are straight axle the whole way through, right? The GM trucks have an independent front suspension, okay? The difference that makes going down the highway at 70 miles an hour, you know, whether you're pulling something or not, I would say pulling something probably makes it even, you know, you have something behind you, the wind hits, if you go over a bump, you know, that's amplified by whatever you're towing, right? That difference in this, with this Ford truck, was basically, I would say 95% of the time pulling my camper, I had to have both hands on the wheel because it does throw you around a little bit more, right? And granted, you're gonna say, well, you have a 35-inch tire on the truck, you know, you're gonna have more float. Yes, you do, but I'm comparing this to driving a GM 2500, 3500 with the same set of wheels and tires, right? The same setup. So a 35-inch tire. The difference between that GM independent front suspension, guys, on a long trip, that is honestly where this Ford truck wears you out a lot quicker than that GM truck. You know, you're going down, you know, you got a tractor trailer beside you, you're passing a semi, you got a concrete barrier on the other side. You know, you got to have both hands on the wheel because you're floating around a little bit more, right? So I would say that independent front suspension on the GM trucks, having driven it compared to the Ford, definitely a game changer, right? That straight axle, you definitely feel that. However, like I said, towing it, you know, I would say it was probably 1,200 miles up and back. Guys, the high output motor, the exhaust brake combo, like the braking combo, getting yourself slowed down, super impressive truck. 24 F-350 Platinum with about 13,000 miles on it. That truck I'm gonna stick out, it's gonna be a mid-80s truck, okay? So probably an 84.9 truck. Apples for apples, the Ford truck, like this truck has more equipment than a GM Denali Ultimate would have. However, the ride of that GM Denali Ultimate, in my mind, is gonna be better. You know, the actual steering feel going down the highway, it's gonna be a little bit better than in the Ford. So again, some trade-offs there, guys, and I guess the other stat I'm gonna say too, this truck with the high output, I averaged, you know, doing 70, 75 mile an hour, pulling my trailer, 8,500 pound trailer. It has some height to it, it does sit up a little bit. I averaged 9.4 mile to the gallon, okay? So total trip, I averaged 9.4 mile to the gallon. Diesel, you know, not great, okay? I can tell you the GMs, I drove a 3500 Chevy Silverado High Country out to Kansas 2 years ago, pulling a trailer, not as big of a trailer. Same setup, 35s on that. Fuel, actually wasn't fuel wheel in that truck too. I think that truck I averaged 11.2 mile to the gallon, that total trip up and back. So again, pretty close, not crazy. I mean, when you have a camper behind you or a trailer behind you, you're not gonna get great fuel mileage, but you guys tell me your experience with it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Any of you guys that have the Fords, have the GMs. I was, you know, again, intriguing to me. I always like to try these different trucks out, get that firsthand experience with them. F-350, that's the truck. That truck will be up on the website soon for sale. So if you have interest, comment in, check out the site here in the next probably week or two. That sucker's gonna be up for sale. Absolutely beautiful truck. Sweet truck. If you guys have interest, let me know. But again, be sure to hit subscribe, guys, for more content, more videos coming your way, more truck content. Appreciate you watching.